everybody, my name is Talene and I am your friendly neighborhood educator. I've been in education for about 10 years and specifically focus on reading skills for a lot of kiddos. But I try to make everything as fun and engaging and interdisciplinary as possible. So I wanted to do a 5-day art history unit where you will combine reading skills, art skills, and history skills all in the same project. So you're going to be meeting a lot of Common Core standards with this. You're going to be having fun with this, assuming you like to do art. And you know you don't have to be an artist. And I tried to choose projects that we could easily make more difficult or easier depending on the kiddos that you're working with. You might have multiple kiddos in your home. So you want to vary it based on their ability. And I'll try to show you the modifications I would make throughout the lesson as we do it. Okay? So today we're going to focus on Van Gogh. I love his paintings. He was a super weird dude, but we can learn a lot from him and he made some beautiful artwork. So here's this. Today's final product as far as the artwork goes is going to look like this. It is crayons mixed with watercolors. So let's go through materials here. You're going to have a blank one of these for each of your kids that are being involved in it, and you, if you decide you want to do it. Crayons, watercolors, and with watercolors you need water. And I found excerpts online, kid-friendly language for biographies for these artists. Now, some of the content may be a little too much depending on the age level. So I did in the Google Doc that I can share with you, highlight the portions of each of the excerpts that might go a little too far for some of your younger kiddos. That you might want to not delve into some of those ideals quite yet, or you might want to. It's up to you, but I just wanted you to have a heads up as far as where those parts are, okay? For the younger kids, this could be as simple as, hey, did you know there's a guy named Van Gogh who did Impressionist paintings? And here's what some of his paintings look like, and you can Google image some of his stuff and say, you want to do a coloring page that looks like this and we can paint it after? And they're like, yeah! And that's what I did with my 2- and 4-year-old. But you might have high schoolers that are doing this too. And in that case, you might want to find ways for them to research more on their own, write more about it. They can compare and contrast different Impressionist artists. So you can see how you can vary these lessons to meet the needs of the kiddos that you're working with at your house, okay? And I'm trying to make this as easy as possible for you. So let's just dive in if you're interested, okay? So first I like to start off with going through vocabulary that might potentially trip some kiddos up. So the way I'm teaching this particular lesson is the way I would teach it to maybe a 3rd grade, 4th grade-ish level class. So I went through the reading and I found some of the words that might trip them up. I highlighted them. That's also highlighted for you in the document. And I wrote the definitions down on index cards in blue, and then I wrote the words in orange. So what I do, you can put this on the wall. You could do this also on a small piece of paper, doesn't matter. I just Googled defined each of the words. And so I found a style or movement in painting originating in France in the 1860s, depicting the visual impression of the moment, especially in terms of shifting the effect of light and color. And then another word's going to mean a poor farmer of low social status. Another word is going to mean give all or a large part of one's time or resources. And another one's going to mean dark or dull in color or tone. So what I do sometimes is try to make it into a game. And every day that we do these lessons with these units, I'll teach you a different way to do vocabulary with your kiddos that is fun and engaging. And you can do it with many things. You can do it with letters, you can do it with math, you can do it with whatever. Really, the sky's the limit. Okay. Then I wrote the words on separate cards. We have the word somber, and as you noticed, I wrote it in orange. I have the word peasant. I have the word devote. And I have the word impressionism. So then what I do is I have the kiddos guess which one goes with which definition. So as they go through it, if they got one wrong, couple of them wrong, whatever, I'll tell them, okay, this one's right, this one's right, this one's right, switch up the other ones. Or I know in that case with 4, it's not going to be the case, but give them a chance to try to analyze it and work it out. Again, if you're working with the super small kiddos, like kindergarten, first grade level, I wouldn't worry about it too much. You could just tell them what it is and then put it there. Okay, so this is Impressionism, a style or movement in painting that originated in France. A peasant is a poor farmer of low social status. Somber is dark or dull in color or tone. And then I have devote, and I put it over here. Okay. These are some of the words that might come across, that might trip them up as we're going through the lesson, or not, but it doesn't hurt to go through some of these higher vocabulary words. Okay? All right. So, when we get to the reading, I'm not going to read it to you word for word. I am going to tell you what I would do. With the younger kids, I would just read some of this out loud to them, or have them sit next to me and they can follow along with what I'm reading. With the really little kids, like with my kids, I did not go to the part where he was committed to a mental institution or he cut off his ear, things like that. Those are not the things that I wanted to go through with my kiddos right now. You might, that's okay. But I did, in the original document, highlight that part in a light pink so that you can make the decision yourself on whether or not you want to do that. So, and then if you have the older kids who are going to go through this, I'd print a copy for them. They can go through this on their own, and then we can teach them how to highlight and annotate on the side. Highlighting and annotating what they're reading, which is just basically writing notes to themselves in the margins, makes a huge difference in reading comprehension and their writing skills. Huge. I'm going to do a separate lesson on how to annotate, but for now, I'm just going to read this with you in a skimmed style, just so that you get the gist of what we're teaching, okay? So this starts with his occupation. I did put the website at the top where I got the information from, and it just says that Van Gogh grew up in the Netherlands, and his father and grandfather were ministers, but other family members worked in the art world, and he had 2 brothers and 3 sisters, but he was really close with his younger brother, Theo. He was going to try to be a minister, but he gave up on that, and he decided to devote himself completely to art when he was about 27. When he first started painting in his early years, he would have pretty somber paintings. They were often painted in browns or dark greens, things that kind of looked depressing. And an example of that is the Potato Eaters. This one's printed in black and white, but you can just pull up an image on your phone. You don't have to print anything. And this is of a peasant family, which is a poor farmer of low social status, like that family, eating potatoes for dinner, okay? Don't get me wrong, I love potatoes. But to only have potatoes all the time is probably a bit much, right? Theo was writing to him later about a new style of painting in Paris called Impressionism. So this is the style of painting that Van Gogh is most known for. He moved to Paris to learn from these new painters, and he learned from like Monet and Degas and Pissarro. And then he started to use brighter colors, which you'll notice in Starry Night. So I would have some of these pictures like printed out or pulled up on my phone. I try to save ink, so I didn't physically print them myself, but you can definitely pull them up on your computer. Okay. This next part is basically where it starts to get a little more deep and heavy. It talks about his mental institution time, talks about his ear situation. You can choose to stop there with the younger kiddos, or you can keep going. This is totally up to you, but the remainder of it is about that, basically. This is only 3 pages long. It's pretty bite-sized, okay? But you're still coming across some good vocabulary and things to do. So then, you want to get your blank coloring page. I mean, I would do this at a table, but for the sake of this video, this is what we're going to do. I get all the shades of blue, and I would, because the wax is going to resist the watercolors, you want to press down as hard as you can without breaking the crayon, or just go over it a little bit and trace each of these lines. Okay, in my other one, my sample, added some lines in the middle just to be more Van Gogh-y and swirly with it. I added different colors. I tried to put yellow in some of the windows down here because I noticed that's how it was in the original. I had the original pulled up next to me. But remember, your kiddos are the artists. So if they decide they want the sky to be orange or the village to be green or whatever, that's their decision. They can do that. In my opinion, if you want them to be more purists about that, you can do that too. After I'm done tracing each of these lines and coloring in some of the village and this mountain and things like that, that's when I get my watercolors and I dip them in my blues and even a little bit of my purples, and I swish it through the entire thing. And this would be kind of what your final product will look like. At the end of this whole unit, my hope is to have like a little portfolio that we're going to put together, and I'll show you what that looks like at the end, so that you have something to keep. It's like a keepsake. You can also do a written portion of this, which would be a whole separate lesson that I can do with you, where they summarize a little bit of what they read. I would keep it to just like a paragraph that they could maybe use at the bottom of their art piece, and we can do that in a separate lesson. But in the meantime, you can just start with vocabulary practice, reading aloud and reading with them, annotating the passage, and then doing the artwork at the end. If your child is an artist and they want to use different mediums to make this painting, if they don't want the coloring sheet and they want to just try to freehand the whole thing, that's great too. The world is your oyster. This is just what I would do in a classroom full of people at varying levels, and then I would accommodate as necessary. So I hope you find this helpful. Stay safe, wash your hands, be good, drive safe, make good choices.